My sister excluded me from her wedding because of my kids, then showed up at my door 2 years later with gifts, claiming to want to reconnect. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, I share stories inspired by real-life experiences and thought-provoking discussions from Reddit on family, friends, and life. Today, we bring you a story about a character who had to face an unexpected betrayal and heartbreak from her own family. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you loved turned their back on you, and you were forced to choose between holding on to the past or moving forward? Stay with us till the end to see how the character navigated this painful journey. I'd also love your support. Please help me reach 1,000 subscribers so I can continue bringing more compelling stories to you. Hey there, I'm Olivia. If you've ever felt like your whole world was crumbling because of the people you trusted most, stick around, because this is the story of how I learned the hard way that family isn't always what it seems. Picture this. You've worked your whole life to build a perfect, happy family. You're doing everything right, raising your kids with love and care, making sure they have what they need, and most importantly, you're giving them a sense of belonging. You think you've got it all figured out until one day, the people you've trusted most turn their backs on you. Sounds dramatic? Well, buckle up because this is real. I have 2 amazing kids, Aiden and Ben, both 11. They're twins and they're on the autism spectrum. It's not always easy, but we've built a life around them that's stable, supportive, and full of love. My husband, Derek, and I work hard to provide for them, making sure we create a peaceful and understanding environment. We've faced our challenges, like meltdowns in public or battles with the school system to get proper accommodations. But hey, that's life, right? The struggle is real, but we're making it work. Now, let me take you back to a time when things seemed simpler. I had a sister, Mia. We were inseparable. Growing up, we were the kind of sisters who finished each other's sentences, shared everything, and supported each other no matter what. When I found out I was pregnant with twins, Mia was the first person I called. She was my rock, my best friend. But things changed when Mia met a guy, Josh. Now, Josh wasn't some random guy. He came from money, and I mean real money. His family owned some huge tech companies, and they made sure to remind everyone they were important. I'm not saying I was jealous, but I wasn't exactly thrilled about how Mia started acting. Slowly, I noticed she was spending more time with his friends and less with me. At first, it was harmless, just dinners here and there. But then it became every weekend, and suddenly, every call was about Josh and his family. My kids, Aiden and Ben, started noticing the distance too. "Why isn't Aunt Mia coming over anymore?" they'd ask. I didn't want them to feel rejected, so I made excuses. "She's busy with work," I'd say. But deep down, I knew the truth. Mia didn't want to deal with my kids, and I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. Fast forward a bit. Mia and Josh get engaged, and naturally, I'm thrilled for her. I sent flowers, a card, all the usual wedding stuff. I even asked if she needed help planning, knowing how stressful it could be. I wanted to be there for her, like we always had been for each other. But she just gave me this weird look when I brought it up, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't the usual sisterly excitement I was used to. She said, "I'll think about it." And just like that, the conversation was over. That was the last time she mentioned me in the wedding planning process. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just busy. After all, planning a wedding takes time, right? But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I decided to go ahead and buy a dress, thinking, hey, maybe she just hasn't had time to think it through. I'm her sister. Of course, I'll be included somehow. So I bought the dress. A simple yet elegant piece that I thought would be perfect for the wedding. Still hangs in my closet, tags on it, untouched. It's a constant reminder of how I was left out, even though I had every right to expect to be a part of it. I'd spent years supporting her, cheering her on, but it felt like none of that mattered anymore. One day, as I'm scrolling through Facebook, yes, I still use it, don't judge me, I see all these pictures of Mia's wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony, filled with smiles, laughter, and everything you'd expect from a high-profile event. It was exactly what she wanted. The kind of wedding that made everyone around her believe her life was perfect. But here's the kicker, I wasn't invited. Not as a guest, not even in the wedding party. Mia, Josh, and their important family had their perfect day, and I wasn't part of it. The people who mattered to them, the ones they cared about, were there. My parents were there. My cousins were there. Heck, even people from high school, people Mia hadn't spoken to in years, were there. But me, I was out. It wasn't just the snub that hurt. It was the realization that I had been replaced, overlooked, and cast aside. My place in her life, my role as her sister, was suddenly insignificant. A background character in the story she was now telling with Josh and his family. And that's when I snapped. I couldn't sit there and pretend it didn't bother me. So I did what anyone in my position would do. I called Mia. For once, she actually answered the phone. I tried to keep my voice steady as I asked her, "Mia, why wasn't I invited? Why didn't you tell me? We've always shared everything. We're sisters." I waited, hoping for some sign that this was just a mistake. But she hesitated. She took her time, like she was trying to figure out how to spin the truth without hurting me too much. After what felt like forever, she finally said, "Well, Josh's family didn't want any disruptions at the wedding. They were worried your kids might make people uncomfortable." That hit me like a ton of bricks. My kids, the ones I had raised with every ounce of love and care, the ones who had never asked for anything except understanding and acceptance, were suddenly the reason I wasn't welcome. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about who my kids were, who we were as a family. And to Mia, that wasn't good enough. I stood there in my kitchen, the phone pressed to my ear, just staring at the refrigerator magnet she had brought me from her vacation the year before. It had "Sisters Forever" written on it. I'd held onto that magnet for years, a symbol of everything we had shared. But now it felt like a cruel joke. I took it off the fridge and threw it in the trash while we were still on the phone. I didn't even let her respond. Couldn't. The betrayal was too raw, too fresh. I was furious. I didn't know what else to say, so I hung up. My chest felt tight, like I was suffocating in my own home. But I wasn't ready to let it go just yet. I needed answers. I needed to understand why. So I called my parents, expecting them to back me up, expecting them to be just as angry as I was. I thought they would understand. I thought they'd see that Mia had made a huge mistake. But instead, they defended her. My dad, with his typical calm, almost dismissive tone, said, "Sometimes tough decisions have to be made." As if this was just a minor inconvenience. He didn't even acknowledge how hurt I was. He followed up with, "Maybe it's better your boys aren't at events like this anyway. They can be overstimulated." That was the final straw. My own father, the man who had been there for me through every hardship, was now telling me that my kids, my beautiful boys, weren't welcome because they might cause disruptions. I was floored, as if they knew what was best for my kids better than I did. As if my years of fighting for them, advocating for them, and standing by them meant nothing. The truth hit me like a cold slap in the face. This wasn't just about the wedding. Mia and my parents had always treated my boys differently. Less enthusiasm, fewer presents, fewer invites. It was clear they didn't understand my kids. They didn't want to understand. In that moment, I realized that I had been waiting for an apology, waiting for them to recognize how much they had hurt me and my family. But I wasn't going to get that apology. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. Enough was enough. I blocked them all. I changed my phone number. Derek and I started looking for a new house. One with a layout that worked better for the kids. We needed a fresh start, and we got it. The hardest part was letting go of the family I thought I knew. But in the end, it wasn't worth holding on to the pain. It wasn't worth pretending that things could ever go back to the way they were. My family, the people who mattered, were the ones who loved and supported us through every trial and tribulation. My kids deserved better than this, and so did I. I didn't need Mia's approval or my parents' validation. I had Derek, I had Aiden and Ben, and that was all I needed. It was time to move on, to build a life where we weren't judged for being different, where we could be ourselves without fear of rejection. And so we did. We found a place that was ours, a home where we could finally breathe without the weight of the past hanging over us. 2 years passed. Life, for the first time in what felt like forever, felt stable. My kids, Aiden and Ben, were thriving. They had their moments, of course, the occasional meltdown, the odd social misstep, but overall they were flourishing in their new environment. They had friends, a steady routine, and a community that genuinely accepted them, quirks and all. It was amazing. Derek and I had found our footing again. We had a new home, a fresh start, and a circle of people who saw our family for what it was. A family. No judgments, no whispers, just understanding. We were in a good place. In fact, I thought that chapter of my life, the one with Mia and the rest of my family, was closed for good. I had moved on. I had to. The pain of that wedding, the coldness from my sister, the way my parents just stood by and let it happen, I buried it. I buried all of it and focused on what mattered. My kids, my husband, our future. But then, one Saturday morning, everything changed. I was in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, listening to the hum of the washing machine as I checked emails. The boys were downstairs, engrossed in their Saturday morning cartoons. The doorbell rang. I didn't think much of it. We weren't expecting anyone. But then again, we lived in a neighborhood where people tended to pop by for impromptu visits. So, I walked to the door, expecting maybe a neighbor with a casserole or some friendly chit-chat. But when I opened the door, I was met with the last people I ever thought I'd see. There stood Mia, my parents behind her, holding bags of gifts like nothing had changed. The surprise hit me like a physical blow. How did they even know where I lived? We'd moved a couple of times since the fallout, and I'd taken precautions to keep my new life private. It was as if they had hired someone to track us down, and that realization made me feel violated. It was creepy, honestly. I froze for a moment, just staring at them, unsure if I should slam the door or let them speak. Before I could say anything, Mia burst into tears. Real, genuine tears. Her face twisted in what looked like regret, and her voice quivered as she said, "I've missed you. I've missed you both so much." I didn't know how to react. The last time we'd spoken was a painful exchange, one that ended with me shutting her out of my life. Now, here she was, crying on my doorstep like she hadn't just walked away from me and my kids, like she hadn't been the one to choose sides and alienate us. Mom spoke next, trying to sound sympathetic, but I could hear the rehearsed nature of her words. "We've done a lot of thinking," she said, as if this was some grand revelation. "We realize now we made mistakes." She looked at me expectantly, like I was supposed to accept that as an apology, but I couldn't. I couldn't just forget what they'd done to my kids, what they'd done to me. Mia continued, her voice thick with emotion. I've been through a lot. Josh and I have been trying for a baby for 2 years, and it hasn't worked. We can't get pregnant." She looked at me, waiting for sympathy, for a shift in my expression. But I couldn't give it to her. Not now, not after everything. She paused, wiping away her tears. "I guess I'm just rethinking what family really means." I stared at her for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. Here was Mia, standing in front of me, pouring her heart out, and yet all I could think was, what about the family you already had? The one you turned your back on because it didn't fit into your perfect image of what family should look like. My mom nodded sympathetically, as if agreeing with everything Mia said. Like the last 2 years, the hurt, the exclusion hadn't even happened. And then there was my dad, standing awkwardly behind them, shifting from foot to foot, avoiding eye contact. I could see he was uncomfortable, but he wasn't saying anything. Mia said all the right things, the words that you expect to hear from someone who wants to make amends. It was like listening to a Hallmark card come to life. "I've realized that family isn't just about blood," she said, her voice shaky but full of conviction. "I want to rebuild what we had. I want us to be close again like we used to be." But I saw through it. I wasn't fooled by the tears or the revelations. This wasn't about me, and it sure wasn't about my kids. Mia had always wanted the perfect life, the perfect family. And now, after 2 years of trying to conceive, she was looking to fill that void by settling for the family she had discarded. The one that didn't fit her vision of perfection, but the one that had always been there for her, even when she wasn't. This wasn't about reconnecting or healing. This was about her trying to create the perfect family by using mine as a backup. She had no apologies for the pain she caused, for the way she'd rejected my children. She hadn't once acknowledged the deep hurt she'd caused me or how her actions affected my boys. No, this was about her desire to make everything look right. I could feel my anger bubbling up inside me. My voice was calm, but each word felt like it came from a place of deep hurt and disbelief. "Mia," I said, looking her directly in the eye, "my kids are not your emotional support animals. They are not here for you to pick up and drop when it's convenient for you. They are human beings and they have feelings. You didn't care about them before, but now that you can't have your own, you think it's okay to come back and pretend like everything's fine." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure, but the hurt was overwhelming. I felt my hands shaking, my heart pounding in my chest. "You weren't there for us when we needed you. You weren't there for my kids, and now you want to waltz back into our lives because you are the one who's hurting. But that's not how this works. You don't get to come back when it's convenient for you." I felt the room go still. Mia's face faltered. She didn't know how to respond to the truth. She couldn't possibly understand the depth of the hurt she had caused. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but I cut her off. "I'm done, Mia," I said. "I'm done with the games. I'm done with being the one who's always supposed to make the first move. If you want to fix things, you need to understand that it's not about what's convenient for you. It's about what's right. You don't get to decide when you show up. Not like this." I stepped back, and without another word, I shut the door. The sound of it closing echoed in my ears. I didn't feel relieved, but I knew I had made the right decision. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. I wasn't going to let Mia and my parents treat me like this. I wasn't going to let them keep coming back whenever it suited them. The next few days were a whirlwind. Mia tried calling and texting nonstop, but I ignored her. My phone buzzed constantly, each notification a reminder of the person I had once called my sister. She sent long, apologetic messages, begging me to listen, to forgive her, to let her back in. The messages ranged from tearful pleas to passive-aggressive remarks about how I was making things worse by not responding. At first, I considered replying, just to get her off my back. But then I remembered why I had shut her out in the first place. She didn't deserve a place in my life anymore. Not after everything. Then my mom reached out. She sent a message saying Mia was devastated and that I was being too harsh. I didn't care. What mattered was protecting my kids from the same rejection I had been through. I had spent so many years bending over backward, trying to keep the peace, trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect sister. But what had it gotten me? The only thing I had in the end was bitterness, heartbreak, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I wasn't about to put my kids through that. Mia hadn't cared about them before. She had excluded them from the wedding, called them a disruption. She had treated them like they were a burden on her perfect world. And now that her perfect little family wasn't happening as planned, she wanted to come back and act like everything was fine. Things only escalated from there. Mia started posting about our reconciliation on social media. She tried to paint herself as this heartbroken aunt who just wanted to reconnect, someone who had been misunderstood, while making me look like the villain. The posts were filled with emotional language, heart-shaped emojis, and photos of us when we were kids, as though those memories were enough to make everything she had done right. But the worst part? She posted pictures of my kids, without my permission, pictures she had no right to share. At first, I felt that familiar wave of anger and frustration rising in my chest. How dare she use my children for sympathy? How dare she exploit our family for her own agenda? But then something shifted. I wasn't angry anymore, I was disgusted. Disgusted by how little she had changed, by how she still saw people as things to be manipulated and used to get what she wanted. I had had enough. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wasn't going to sit back and let her use social media to make me look like the bad guy while she played the role of the grieving sister trying to mend fences. I reached out to a lawyer and started documenting everything. The posts, the messages, the unsolicited gifts that Mia had started sending in an attempt to buy my forgiveness. I wasn't going to let them push me into a corner. Not this time. I remember the first call I had with the lawyer. It felt like a weight was being lifted off my shoulders, like I was finally taking control. The lawyer explained my rights and gave me the clarity I needed to understand that I wasn't just dealing with a personal betrayal anymore. I was dealing with something much larger. It was a violation of boundaries, an invasion of privacy. And I wasn't going to let Mia think she could waltz back into my life because she felt bad or because she couldn't get what she wanted. Eventually, Mia's attempts to buy me off with gifts and money started to stop. The perfume, the jewelry, the cards with long, heartfelt messages. None of it worked. No amount of material things could erase the damage she'd done, the hurt she'd caused. I didn't need her gifts. I didn't need her money. What I needed was an apology. A real, honest apology, not one wrapped in guilt and self-pity. But I knew I wasn't going to get that from her. So, Derek and I decided to take a family trip. A week away from everything. Away from Mia, from my parents, from the social media drama. We rented a cabin by a lake, surrounded by nature. It was exactly what we needed. Peace, quiet, and the chance to reconnect with each other without the noise of the world. The boys loved it, of course. They ran around with their new friends they met at the park, playing games, getting dirty in the woods, and just being kids. I could see the joy in their faces, and it made me realize just how far we had come. How much we had grown as a family in the last 2 years. Felt like the best decision I'd ever made. I didn't need Mia. I didn't need my parents. My family was Derek, Aiden, and Ben, the people who had been there through thick and thin. The people who accepted me, who accepted my kids for who we were. The people who loved us without any strings attached. And in that moment, I realized something incredibly powerful. Family isn't about blood or shared memories. It's about who shows up for you, who accepts you for who you are, and who loves you without any conditions. I had spent so long waiting for my family to change, for Mia to realize the hurt she caused and make things right. But I had come to a heartbreaking conclusion. I was done waiting. My kids and I were moving forward, and we weren't going to look back. I was going to make sure my kids never felt less than they were, because they were everything. As we sat around the campfire that night, the flickering flames casting a warm glow over our little circle, I looked at Derek and the boys, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. It was like I had finally found my place in this world. A place where I was free from the judgment, the rejection, and the toxicity of my past. The past 2 years had taught me a lot about myself and about the kind of family I wanted to build. I had learned that it didn't matter who shared my last name or who I was born to. What mattered was who chose to stand by me, who chose to love me, and who chose to be there for me when I needed it most. I made a promise to myself. A promise that I would never let anyone make my kids feel like they were less than anyone else. That I would never let them feel the hurt and rejection I had felt. They deserved better, and I would give them the world if it meant protecting their hearts from the cruelty that I had endured. And as the fire crackled, the sounds of nature surrounding us, I knew that I was finally free. Free from the past, free from the family that didn't understand me, and free to build a future where my family, my real family, could thrive. What do you think about this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts, feelings, or any feedback you might have. Feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch the next exciting story coming your way. Thank you for staying with me till the end, and I truly appreciate your support. See you next time.